Okay, hello everyone. So today is actually a sad day. We're going to be talking about, is the HoloLens dead? What is going on with all this news around Microsoft mixed reality being part of getting laid off? There's like, I don't know, 10,000, 11,000 people that got laid off, and a big chunk of that was the mixed reality team. I have with me here Levi Lais. Very prominent mixed reality developer, and I'll let you give an intro in just a moment. And then, of course, on my end, I do a lot of mixed reality development. It really kind of got started because of the Microsoft HoloLens and the Microsoft mixed reality ecosystem. So this really hits home pretty deep. Kind of, it's a cut to my heart. Makes me really sad. But yeah, Levi, do you want to give a quick intro on what you've done in the space?
Yeah. I mean, basically, since you were invited to be a part of that first group back in 2016, 2015, something like that, we've sort of just been doing it together, right? So I've done a lot of like the UI UX side of things, a lot of the designing side of things. I've got my HoloLens too.
There it is, right there.
It's time to put it away, I guess. Zip it up. Yeah, it's brutal. It's a sad day for sure. But yeah, my experience has been as you know, multi-platform a lot. So like I'll focus a lot on the mobile side of things. I dev to the HoloLens too, if and when it's applicable. But it's partially not as much of a surprise. It hasn't been everything kind of like starts out as this multi-platform, push, but then it seems to still always go towards the devices people have, So my experience has been in multi-platform with the inclusion of HoloLens 2 and building to HoloLens 2. But I mean, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't pull it out that much. I haven't pulled it out that frequently. Usually what I need to do, I can do with either in the editor or, test it out real quick on a mobile device because of our multi-platform solutions. And then by the time it gets to the HoloLens, like the end user's using it, of course, I know how it works and everything. But as far as like time in headset, it's actually been pretty low for how much developing for the HoloLens I've done over the last 6 years.
Yeah. I think what's really surprised me most about this, everything that's gone down is how deep the cuts have been. I think I would have probably expected that, there was a big layoff because of the economy. And so, 20% of the staff was cut, or maybe even 50%, but so it's on essentially life support. But from everything I've been reading on the news, it's like pretty much everything has been on the chopping block. It's almost like, and there hasn't been an official statement from Microsoft on like, is the HoloLens dead? But all the news articles that I've been reading, everything that I've been seeing, essentially points to the mixed reality team being cut, the HoloLens team being cut. Altspace VR said that they're shutting down in March. That's the whole, that was kind of the Metaverse platform essentially by Microsoft. And it's almost like, wow, this is really feels like the nail in the coffin. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think it's dead, or do you think it's going to be on life support?
So for better or worse, it's kind of felt very similar to Microsoft's other hardware plays. It's just kind of they try a thing, whether they're first or third, or it doesn't really matter. It seems where they come in, HoloLens, they were the first, right? Like they were like the first big push into AR, and it wasn't quite what imaginations were hoping for, and it didn't get the traction I think maybe that they wanted. Same thing for Magic Leap though, right? Like the AR glasses tech just isn't there. And so I feel like their iPod knockoff, their pads, their the phone, the Windows phone,
Yeah.
I actually think Surface has been a surprising success.
Yeah.
When you take it across the whole
Yeah.
spectrum of products that they've put out, the Surface is kind of the last one standing in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And you know, but that's hardware, right? Like, so I feel like the software portion of it is really where the conversation
Yeah. And
is.
arguably even the Surface line, they've kind of leaned heavily into more of the laptop form factor, right? Like the tablet form factor is still out there. It's still, I would call it successful, but really it's like it's another laptop, right?
Right. Yeah, and so the software is has always been where they've been very, very effective. Like Google has search, Microsoft has software, like it's enterprise software,
Yeah.
and anything that they've tried to do, it feels like on the hardware side of things has just come and gone.
Yeah.
And the Xbox they've been really competitive in the gaming space, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they just don't have staying power with their hardware, and so personally, I thought that there was going to be a like winner in the space
Mm-hmm.
before we would see completely bagging it and just like,
Yeah.
never mind, we're not doing it anymore. I kind of thought that there would be like a winner in the space, but
Almost
I
like
think
we lost, so let's give up. But
yeah. What the most frustrating and confusing and sort of like why I've been reeling a little bit is like, if they didn't see value in continuing down that path,
yeah.
and no one else has succeeded down that path,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean? Like, what are the technological implications of
Yeah.
what can be technologically achieved? Was it that far out of reach?
Yeah. Because the HoloLens is right now, it's the undisputed like best AR headset out there, right? Like
Right.
I think it is. I mean, that's my opinion, but I think it's the best, but it's still not enough, even though it's the best, right?
Right. Because I mean, you put it on and you expect to be immersed,
Yeah.
in an augmented world, and you're not. And so, it's a whole lot to put on for a very small field of view, basically. And so it's like all of this other tech of like hand tracking and all these things, like it's all really good, but like unless the experience itself, I'm an experience first thinker, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my job is UX. But so like for me, from an experience perspective, it's because your expectations are here and it delivers here.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's not been researching or studying or what, like they're like, whoa, this is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you're up here and you're like visioning and you're like, this is what it can be, and it's just not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's underwhelming. It's frustrating because like, I think one of the biggest issues is the technology can't meet the expectation right now.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that's a big part of why they're like, well, hardware is not going to happen, so let's go software, because as I think we've all been seeing on the news, pass-through AR is sort of that like Apple's like scrapping their AR thing, punting it, whatever you want to say, and then they're looking to bring in, more of push out more of like a VR pass-through concept.
Mm-hmm.
Quest, Pro or whatever is doing its pass-through thing. Like everybody's really starting to focus in on pass-through. And so I just wonder if there's just sort of like a universal concession that's like, it's not going to be, the tech won't be there soon enough. And so, maybe they'll go software instead of hardware.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the software, what you mentioned about software is right, because everything that I've been reading shows that Microsoft Mesh, which is kind of like their software platform play in this, is still alive a little bit. I've been hearing conflicting reports. I've heard some reports say that 80% of Mesh has been cut. Others are saying everything's being consolidated, focus on Mesh. In fact, if you look at the AltSpace announcement about them closing down AltSpace VR, that's the official announcement from Microsoft. They said that they're shutting it down in order to focus on mesh. So I think that's the software play that you're talking about. And I can't remember if Satya Nadella mentioned this during Mark Zuckerberg's Meta announcement a few months ago, but I think he mentioned that they would be partnering with Meta, and Mesh would be a key part of that story. Mesh and Teams. Don't quote me on that. He may have just mentioned Teams, but I think that, yeah, if the software play, if they're still going to stay in this sector and they're going to focus more on software, then it seems like Mesh is what they're going to be doing that under. Yeah, when I first joined, I guess, the ecosystem back in 2016, when I got my first HoloLens device, that was my first forte into the XR ecosystem. Before that, I wasn't doing AR or VR or anything, right? So my very first XR experience was because of the HoloLens. I remember thinking at the time, back in 2015 when it was announced, and then 2016 when I got my hands on the device, was like, wow, this is so magical. This is amazing. What is it going to look like in 2017? How much is it going to improve in 2018? And then how much more smaller and nicer is it going to get in 2019? And whoa, by the time 2020 rolls around, we're going to all be wearing glasses. But that ended up not happening at all. Like, the rate of innovation was so painfully slow. Do you think that, like, that was part of, like, the nail in the coffin, was just like how slow it was moving?
Honestly, I think that it's 90% economy. It's and 10% maybe a refocusing of resources.
Okay.
I think that it's notable that this is on the heels of the Chat GPT stuff, and that there's big rumors, $10 billion of an investment. Like, how much of that was HoloLens? So I think that with the economy contracting and layoffs happening industry wide, it's almost like a perfect storm. Like, I don't know.
That makes sense.
Like, I think it has an impact on I think that there's a factor that is like, maybe the HoloLens doesn't have like a sure path.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I think that it has to do with the tech. Otherwise, I mean, if there was a sure path, I doubt they'd cut it. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this wholesale pivot necessarily comes from just a disbelief in the tech. Like, I think that there's these other factors that force them to make a hard decision.
I can see that. So maybe if the economy was doing well and there was a lot of money in the space, then maybe Microsoft would have kept around mixed reality just to kind of like hang on and be prepared for when the industry is ready. Kind of like continuing to trickle in investment. But if you have to make cuts, if you're forced to make cuts, then where are you going to cut it? And unfortunately, mixed reality was on the chopping block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me share. I pulled up a site here.
Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, wow.
Can you see this?
Yeah. The layoffs.fyi.
Yeah.
I had no idea this data is even out there like this. Wow.
Yeah. So I've sorted it by layoff number. You can sort by date, sort by layoff number. So like today, for example, where is it? No, 9 to 1. Yeah. Today, Spotify laid off 600 people a few hours ago, 6% of their company, right? Wayfair on the 20th laid off 1,750 people, right? Vox Media, 130, but that's 7% of their workforce. So if you sort it by the number of people here, look, Google, consumer, right? But Google laying off 12,000 people.
Wow.
Was that this? Yeah, 3 days ago. Facebook laying off, or Meta, right? Laying off 11,000. We heard about that back in November.
Yeah.
Microsoft, that's what we're talking about today. 10,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the industry there is other, right? Because that's unfortunately AR. It's HoloLens stuff. Amazon, combining the November and the January layoffs, you're looking at 18,000 people being laid off from Amazon in retail.
Yeah.
So Salesforce losing 8,000, 10% of their company, so I feel like if you're looking at these companies and you're looking at their profit centers versus their, was it cost centers? The stuff that's like the R&D, the research, the future products, I feel like those are the things that are probably on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And Twitter had their little 3,700 or whatever. This percentage, that's not half of Twitter, right? So I don't know what the percentage is exactly. I don't think that's the percentage of the company. Was Twitter only 7,000?
It may have been. It may have been. I know when Elon Musk came in, like it was pretty hefty. I can't remember what the story was, but it was something like, hey, you guys better work 80-hour weeks or be laid off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that number for Twitter.
But yeah, so like, Peloton, Uber, Groupon, like there's Cisco, like there's a bunch of these companies that have done, in the thousands since the crypto crash in last spring, right? Like, I don't know about you, but it seemed like everybody's money dried up at that time. It's like, it's almost like all of the investors in the space, as we lump in Metaverse with AR, I feel like all of the AR VR stuff had their with crypto in this way, right? And so a lot of the investors were excited about this Metaverse play that very deeply involved crypto. And, I think that some of these bigger tech things, these are more economy based, but in the startup world, money got really tight, really fast.
Yeah.
Your crypto was gutted. So
yeah,
sure. I don't know. I just figured I'd share that because it's, it kind of puts it in perspective. I mean, these Microsoft layoffs are a massive blow, right? I mean, look at that Seattle, right? 28,000 people.
Oh yeah,
unemployed.
the market here. I'm based in Seattle. And the market here is I think it's about to get pretty gnarly.
Yeah, San Francisco and Seattle.
Yeah,
those are the two that are really hit right now.
Do you think it's odd that like Microsoft hasn't released an official statement about what's going on with HoloLens, like either to reassure people or to like tell people the cold hard truth, like, hey guys, this is what's going to happen. Like mixed reality toolkit's no longer going to be maintained. You're on your own. Like, do you think it's strategic that they're not saying anything, or do you think it's just it's turmoil time and there's no time to really think about formally like telling people what to expect?
So I would be interested to know what is it 10,000 people in the HoloLens department?
No.
Or was it 10,000 across the entire company?
Yeah, it's the entire company. I think it's the entire company. I don't know how big the HoloLens department was, but I want to say like everything mixed reality related. I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers that I have no idea, but my guess is like maybe closer to 1,000 or less people, maybe even a few hundred people were impacted on mixed reality. But yeah, I think the vast majority is probably not mixed reality.
Yes, it looks like USA Today had the break, at least according to this layoffs.fyi.
Uh-huh.
And it looks like 10,000 through the end of Q3 in 2023. It says it's in response to macroeconomic conditions and changing customer priorities. So I think if I had to guess, this came out. Yeah, I think I would have to guess that it's got to do with AI. It has to be the changing customer priorities is interesting to me. Because that's part of the quote from Nadella.
Yeah.
Because like the macroeconomic is obvious, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a big shift happening.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily at a recession yet, but that's simply because everybody hasn't been laid off yet. Like the unemployment rate goes up, that's when the recession hits. So tech got it, crypto got it, the real estate market in these, coastal towns like Portland, where I'm at, Seattle, where you're at, we captured a 15% drop in our home. We were doing a project and went to appraise, and in May it was estimated at like a 600,000 value, and by the time we actually did our appraisal, it came in at 500.
Wow.
The automatic came in at 510, and we were like, let's have an appraisal come out, and it was like within that month it dropped even more.
Yeah.
Those are notoriously paying less than a person coming out.
Yeah.
So I think that like we're seeing this really big contraction happening, and so I think that the HoloLens, unfortunately is like the victim of the economy combined with AI's rosy prospects. I mean, AI is looking pretty cool right now.
So I have two questions. What do you feel like mixed reality developers, XR developers like you and I are also going to now pivot, right? Like move on to AI or diversify even more. And what do you think? Do you think there is still a future in ubiquitous AR glasses? And if you do, what does that look like? Or if not, what are your comments on that? Like, what do you think?
So the first question was first
question, like what are developers like you and I are like? Do you think we're going to pivot? Like, are you thinking about pivoting? I'm sure like we probably, whatever we think is probably fairly representative of what other developers are thinking as well, right?
Yeah. I think that there's a big opportunity in AI. I think that there's a big opportunity in pass-through VR. Apple is still reportedly coming out this year with that tech. And I think that, the Quest Pro has shown that it has a little bit of sticking power. We've got our startup, maneuver with limitless VR. We've got, that are in the AR VR space. So I feel like one of the biggest challenges with the HoloLens was that there wasn't an obvious everyday user use case. And so like, back to your question about, are we surprised that Microsoft hasn't like really talked about this more? If it's just it's 10,000 till Q3, right? Yeah. So like however many have been laid off so far, it's kind of like, I mean, how many people know about the HoloLens other than us who are in the community? Like how many people are like, oh, bummer. I love mine. It was a developer device and they're like, well, developers, we haven't found a use case yet. I mean, there's obvious use cases. It's useful and we know that, but like for some reason, I think it's just the form factor. I think it's the weight, the size, the small field of view. It was the technical execution of Microsoft's hardware play that wasn't good enough, right? AR is good enough. Like that, you hold up your iPhone and you're like, man, if I could just go into that world, that would be amazing, And the problem that the HoloLens wearable should be solving is now you can be in the world with both your hands. And it just didn't solve that in a way that was compelling. So
you're not going to wear that to the grocery store.
Right, exactly. Like you look like a fool. So I don't know if I think we all were just so excited about the potential, but it was just like you said, never getting there. It was never. It was almost like every year. I can't wait till next year because that's when the big breakthrough is going to happen. And it was like, well, now the field of view is this big, and you're like, okay, that's not not going to change anything.
Yep.
It needs to be this big, like
Yeah.
around my face. So yeah, I think that that's kind of a long way of answering. It doesn't change a lot, at least for me, because multi-platform. Everybody was using the Quest Pro at this point.
Yep.
Everybody was using VR with a device.
Yeah.
Everybody was.
It's all about multi-platform. Yeah.
Right. And so to lose the MRTK and or in the whole community and all of that, like I don't think that we necessarily lose what was of true value, which was a bunch of participants in the space who love the tech.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the hardware was always sort of the weakest part, and that's getting cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can't even imagine how painful it is for some of our really good friends that worked at Microsoft, had that dream job of getting to work in the, on a AR device and having that gone, and, combined with all of these other tech layoffs. I mean, the market's being flooded with people who are pretty qualified, to
pioneers in the space,
Yeah. So like, I think that we're in a position to bring in some of those players, some of those guys and gals that are in the space and love it. And, we have these clients that we've been serving, and we've got, deep rosters of developers that we've been bringing in, you and I, and so I think that there is an opportunity, as much as painful as it was. I also think there's an opportunity for those minds and those players in the space to keep pushing it forward.
Yeah.
Because we weren't really using the HoloLens that much in the first place.
Yeah.
Like the VR pass-through is, in my opinion, because of the immersiveness and the field of view, and it fixes a lot of the things, and you already look odd with the headset on. So, I think that pass-through AR is going to be what the HoloLens was trying to do and couldn't. It's going to offer without too much drawback.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be compromising much when both look a little awkward.
So, do you feel like the pass-through AR will be a bridge to transparent AR? Because, like, why would we, like, I can't picture myself wearing a pass-through AR headset in public. But as I was about to ask you that question, I had this memory of Back to the Future when the professor was wearing those glasses that, like, it was all silver. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's like, I would imagine, like, if we did wear a pass-through AR in public, like, that's probably what it would look like. Is like that glasses where you can't, I don't know, like, or like sunglasses. I can't see your eyes when you wear sunglasses, right? So is that like, do you feel like that's the future of AR glasses? Is something like that where, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, here, let me see this real quick. Let's see. Let's do a window. Yeah, so here we go. This dude right here.
Oh, you pulled up a picture of him?
Yeah, actually, here, let me copy and paste it to my desktop real quick. Let's see, save to downloads. Okay, yeah. Okay, this will work. Right here. This Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Like the visor.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that if you had that and it was two-way pass-through, so I've seen some tech folks talking about like the two-way stuff, where like you have like the eyes, which are super creepy, probably. But that's already more than what you were getting with like some of the glare and the things on like a HoloLens, like an AR experience versus like cheeseball, googly eyes, like whatever that ends up looking like. I feel like people are okay with sunglasses.
Yeah,
they don't have to see your eye.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think that like sunglasses in a new form, whether it's a visor or actual looking sunglasses, or I'm a big fan of like the ski goggle look, you
Yeah.
know, because like that's a form factor that a lot of people are really comfortable with.
Yeah.
And
Let me grab these glasses over here. So this is kind of like HTC's vision of like pass-through glasses, right? So it almost looks like sunglasses, right?
yeah,
But it's a VR headset, you know. But it, of course, these are like super like bug eyes, right?
right. Right.
But
So like
maybe
if
like
you were to reduce the profile of those
yeah,
things by
yeah,
like you know, an inch, and you'd still need the blackout on the side, like, but like, you know, there's scuba masks, or you know, which look really weird with the nose and stuff, but like if you had scuba masks without the nose, or you had you know, something like that was just maybe a little bit less
yeah,
protruding from the face. I think that that form factor is as viable as glasses where you can see eyeballs, you know, in
yeah,
terms of like what you'd be doing with it, where you'd be using it, etc. You know, every single implementation. I mean, we've done apps. You and I together have built X-ray apps. We've built surgery apps. We've built pitching, coaching, hockey apps. Like all of these mixed reality experiences would be, and their AR would be just as viable with a
yeah,
pass-through VR device
yeah,
as an AR device.
yeah,
So if I'm being brutally honest, I actually don't feel like we lose much on the hardware side of things. I
yeah.
think that we regain some focus, and
Mhm.
I think that, you know, the real pain from this experience, the real pain from this news is uh the people that
Mhm.
have to go through this stuff.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
to get laid off is rough, you
yeah.
know. Um I mean, geez, I've done since May. Uh, I've done 1.5 million in bids
Wow,
with like
wow.
5 different companies
Yeah,
that all lost their funding.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so you
yeah,
know, getting laid off is, you know, there's purpose that's kind of lost. There's this like, was it me thoughts
yeah.
that you have to have. There's the reduction in resources that comes, you know,
Sure.
and I've been feeling that since May, you know, since the
Yeah,
crypto drop. Like, so like I get it, and I know how that feels. You know, I'm thankful for the ongoing relationships and projects that we do have, and some of the other stuff that's come up. But, you know, I don't know if I've heard a pitch that included a custom deployed Ethereum coin in like 8 months, you know,
yeah,
but like there was a point where it was every single VR play had a coin with it, you know.
yeah,
So, you know, I don't know if the AR shift by Microsoft specifically really has any more implications than them as a company refocusing into a different area where maybe they have a better footing,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But I'd be interested to know with that context where you think, well, what you think, like, let's get out your crystal ball here. Like, what are you thinking? Where are we headed? Like, what's the future look like with this new influx of all of these minds, all of these people that are passionate about mixed reality,
yeah,
and with, you know, the opportunities we have ahead of us with maybe Apple or another Quest Pro that has even better pass through, and like
yeah.
where's this space headed, and what do we do with all these free and ready to rock, you know,
Yeah,
people that are ready to just push forward, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think we only have a couple minutes left, but yeah, I think some of these final thoughts. I think there's a few different pathways. I think the wild card for me is Apple, right? They've been the perpetual rumor for the last 10 years that they're going to
Right.
release some sort of XR device. But for some reason, it feels like this time around, it's more real. Like I remember hearing those rumors in 2018 and 2019. Like they never felt real. They was like, oh, whatever. This just rumors, you know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this year it feels like a little bit more than a rumor. I'm not even sure why. Maybe it's just the type of articles that are coming out. But I still would put that in the realm of wild card because nothing substantial. There's still nothing substantial, and I'm not holding my breath. But if Apple did come out with an XR device, I think it would revitalize the market. It would like re-energize. Like, yeah, I think it would be the biggest thing since the Quest 1 was released back in 2019. And it would be bigger than that. I think it would be much larger than what Quest has done to the industry just because of Apple's name, right?
Right.
So I think that's the wild card that would have a huge impact, but I'm not holding my breath on. I think as far as like the evolution of the space right now, if Apple did not enter in the space, I don't see anything huge happening, but I see things continuing to evolve forward. The one player that I'm really keeping my eye on is actually Qualcomm. For some reason, there seems to be a lot of stuff percolating in the background with Qualcomm and more glasses form factor AR, whether it's pass-through or otherwise. I've been hearing more and more news over, let's say, the last 6 to 8 months. Their partnership with Niantic, and they're coming out with a toolkit. They're really strong on OpenXR. And
does the Quest Pro that uses one of their chips, right?
Yeah. So on the chip side, they're already Quest, the Quest Pro, even the Focus 3, all of HTC. So yeah, on the chip side for sure, they're already there pretty much. But it seems like Qualcomm realizes that this is a huge, if there is going to be a future where everyone's wearing XR headsets, Qualcomm stands to benefit the most from it. So therefore, it stands to reason that they naturally would want to invest a lot in this space. So it seems like they're trying to really push the boundaries by putting out these reference design headsets, right? So I think, and also toolkits, and they've got their Snapdragon Spaces platform. So more on an evolutionary level, I'm keeping my eye closely on Qualcomm and their partners and their ecosystem and their toolkit. I think it's possible, I think it's too early to say, but it's possible that where the MRTK left off, Qualcomm might pick up either the MRTK or their own platform would like take the baton of where MRTK left off. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Yeah, other than Qualcomm and any small surprises, like evolutionary surprises we might see from them, I think right now with Microsoft really slowing down, I think Meta, it's kind of like all on Meta at this point, for them to carry the industry forward. HTC is doing stuff, Pico's doing stuff, but I don't think they have quite the resources that Meta has, right?
Yeah.
And quite the.
I mean, Meta's put all their chips in. At this point.
They're all in. I think Meta will either. I don't see them pivoting away from this unless the board.
Our name again,
right? Yeah, the board would have to fire Mark Zuckerberg, and which I think is possible. I think if Meta goes through enough pain, I think that would be the outcome of this. But if that doesn't happen, either Meta will die with XR, or if XR is going to take off, then Meta stands to benefit a lot from it. And I think Apple coming into the ecosystem could be what helps that, to be honest. Like Apple could essentially help Meta because of that. So
yeah, I think there's biotech, there's fintech, there's all these different technologies. I feel like technology spaces. I feel like there's I like to where it's like the hardware is not quite there yet. We're not like solving. We're not overhauling industries. We're just like creating something from nothing, right? Like this augmented reality, virtual reality, like AI. Metaverse is probably the term, but I don't like that term very much.
Yeah.
we were Metaverse before it was Metaverse, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay, call it that now, but like that's
everything's a Metaverse now.
Right. Um, so I think that, crypto has a small role as a tech. Not everybody agrees with my opinions of crypto, but like, I think that, from a tech standpoint, there's use cases where it makes a lot of sense, but I'm not a huge, like, bet the farm on a coin and hope to, get rich quick like that. The speculative crypto coin stuff, like, I don't know that has a lot of, utility.
I think our next podcast should be fully on crypto. What do you think?
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah. So, but I think that, like, if you were to lump edge tech, if I were to summarize edge tech, it's like mixed reality, AI, basically Web3 in a lot of ways.
I agree. I agree with that.
And at the end of the day, I feel like the people aside, the Microsoft news, which I don't want to cast people aside, but you get what I'm saying. That's a very, like, heart-wrenching part of it. But on the technical side of things, I think that the space is kind of as strong as it's ever been. I think that
the XR space.
Edge tech in general. Part of what we do is multi-platform solutions, right? It's not just a software as a service website. Like, we're talking VR implementations with the phone in this way and capturing that and then translating it over here to do this with AI and gathering the data. Like, we're in this very complex ecosystem of edge tech where crypto gets popular. Now everybody's throwing it into the pile to make these things that we're sort of combining to come up with these new novel future looking solutions. And so I feel like the wearable augmented reality headset is a V2. It's a future tech that could take the things that we've made and that we use on a regular basis with existing form factors. I'll include pass-through AR as an existing form factor. And the glasses, when the tech is there to have an immersive AR experience, I think there's a really good use case for that. But I don't know that it's a debilitating blow to, like, the space. We do have to acknowledge what they've done for the space. Microsoft has done a lot for this space to this point. But I do think that, taking all of that talent and all of that experience and infusing it into the rest of the marketplace,
for sure,
taking it off of the HoloLens and putting it towards some of these, new tech, new solutions in the edge tech space. I think that it's going to end up being a good thing, I think, for most of the people who were affected by that. I would hope, we've been affected by that, and I'm optimistic about our prospects, So
I agree. Well, thank you, Levi. This was great, and it's sad to hear what's happened with the layoffs, but I tend to agree that the industry will survive and I think it'll thrive, and there's a lot of people with really, really great talents out there, and as that starts to cross-pollinate throughout the rest of the industry, I think at the end of the day this will actually be better for, I think, the individual people, but also for the entire industry. I can see this turning out to be a positive thing. Thanks for joining on the podcast today, and who knows, maybe next time we'll talk about crypto.
Sounds good.
All right.